Lane, Family Support Specialist with the North Carolina Down Syndrome Alliance. I also have my tag team, Tori England, here with us tonight, Family Coordinator. And we just welcome you to the North Carolina Down Syndrome Virtual Speaker Series. It is hosted in Coastal Buds, Down Syndrome Network of Onslow and Carteret Counties, Down Syndrome Network of the Greater Greensboro, Down Syndrome Association of Greater Winston-Salem, Down Syndrome Association of Greater Charlotte, and the High Country Buddy Walk. We thank you for your time and your patience as we incorporate this new technology with teams. We feel like we have worked out most of those kinks. The chat will be open this evening, as well as we will be taking questions throughout. So if you want to pop them in the chat, Jacklyn will address them, or we will hold them for the end as well, just depending on the flow of the night. So please, as questions arise, drop them down in the chat or just hold them till the end. And then afterwards, remember, you will receive the recording, a brief survey about our virtual speaker series, and any of the kind of questions and answers we go through together tonight. So we just want to thank Jacklyn for being with us tonight. She is here with Work Together NC and transitioning to adulthood, avoiding that cliff. And so she has been with us at conference and supported us in the past. So we are very excited to welcome her back to share her expertise with our families and resources and possibilities.
I think you froze up a little bit, but am I good to get started?
You are good to get started. Sorry about that. Technology, just as I said, I thought it was correcting.
Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Jacklyn Boheler. I am the project coordinator for Work Together NC. I am an occupational therapist by background, and I identify personally as neurodivergent. And today I'm going to be sharing about Work Together NC, which is a statewide initiative that is grant funded by the Administration on Community Living as a project of national significance. We are in year 4 of 5. However, we have already attained funding to keep this work going at least a couple more years after the grant period. And yeah, I'm excited to share with you all about what we're doing around the transition to adulthood, which is a really critical time and challenging time that can have a big impact on quality of life long term. So we are generally focused on people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And this initiative is very collaborative across many different organizations. The grant funding was awarded to Teach Autism program here at UNC Chapel Hill. However, we collaborate with many different, both local and statewide organizations that serve people with IDD, including managed care organizations across the state, such as Alliance Health or Via Health. There's a couple others. We collaborate with several different public school districts and are actively trying to get more of a presence within the schools. The North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities is another partner, as well as the Department of Health and Human Services. So this is a systems change project really aimed at making the transition to adulthood an easier and more seamless process when we think about the exit from the school system. And we often hear that it is comparable to falling off a cliff, and that is a very not great sounding narrative that we're trying to combat. And we know that in adulthood, things tend to be spread out all over the community rather than the IEP and the support team and the social network being centralized within the school building. Resources are at various places around the community, and each organization has different eligibility, different funding streams, and it can all be just a lot on the family to try to figure it all out. So the problem here is the IEP team doesn't continue into adulthood, unfortunately. And we know that the burden mostly goes on to families to really figure out how the adult service system works. Ideally, there would be a nice pass off from the school to adult services, but we know that that is not the reality in many cases. So our common agenda with Work Together NC is to ultimately improve the quality of life for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, including Down syndrome, and their families through making it easier to navigate systems of support during the transition to adulthood and increasing access to all the things that make up that quality of life, whether it be employment or post-secondary education or just in general community participation. So there are several different aspects of this project and ways that we are tangibly addressing these goals. And one of those that I'm going to share about today is the IDD Inclusive Employment Alliance. So we know that employment is a huge piece of adult life, whether you have Down syndrome or not. And we know also that employers tend to be really misinformed when it comes to hiring people with disabilities. In our initial needs assessment of our community and of our state, we learned that there's just a huge amount of bias affecting employment attainment for people with IDD. And it's not necessarily the lack of skills or lack of capability to do the job that is affecting employment outcomes. It's more so just employers' unfamiliarity with what it would be like to accommodate someone with IDD in their workplace, and potentially fears around things like the cost of accommodations and liability, et cetera. So we really wanted to tackle this problem from the employer angle, with the understanding that they're a key part of this, and it's not just the people with Down syndrome that have to adapt and change. Sometimes we need to hold the broader system accountable. So we developed a training that employers can take that is self-paced and freely available on Work Together NC's website that really breaks down some of the myths and provides some really interactive education around the benefits of hiring people with IDD, some misconceptions and mindset shifts, universal design. In this training, we talk a lot about how accessibility in the workplace doesn't just benefit people with disabilities and actually has a much broader effect on the overall efficiency and productivity of their entire workforce. We also do talk about some of the most common accommodations that could be put in place for people with IDD. And then we connect each employer with a supported employment provider in their community. So this could be a place like Gigi's Playhouse. This could be a place like the Division of Employment and Independence for People with Disabilities, which is statewide, or Autism Society, any kind of organization that provides job coaching and job services for people with IDD. And that way, the employer has a direct connection for recruiting job candidates. Once the employer finishes the training with Work Together NC, they receive recognition. And the reason that we did this is because we really wanted to see employers embracing inclusive hiring as part of their broader diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. And often I think disability gets overlooked in that, but really kind of flipping it to be something that employers are taking pride in rather than something that they are afraid of or just uncertain about. So each employer who completes the training gets a sticker for their storefront that is displayed to the public that says IDD Inclusive Employer with a neurodiversity icon. And fun fact, the NC Down Syndrome Alliance took this training, so they are an IDD Inclusive Employer. And yeah, you can find our full list of IDD inclusive employers, which is slowly but steadily growing on our website. So if your young adult is looking for a job, this could be a really good starting point to know which employers across the state are really well equipped to hire people with IDD, and not only hire them, but provide the supports that might be needed in the workplace. All right. And one of the key ways that we have been recruiting employers into this network or alliance is through hosting what we call coffee talks on IDD inclusive employment. So we've been going around the state partnering with various chambers of commerce to host talks that include a panel of self-advocates who are successfully employed, as well as a panel of employers who are successful with their inclusive hiring initiatives. And we find that really directly centering these lived experiences, these perspectives, is really effective in shifting mindsets. And partnering with the chamber has been a great strategy as well, because no one wants to come to an event that is hosted by any kind of autism organization or Down syndrome organization. An employer wants to come to an event that's hosted by the chamber. So that's really, I think, helped in getting businesses to show up to these events and learn from their peers in the business world. And any supported employment provider can host one of these events in partnership with their chamber. And the first step to that would be accessing the guidebook for hosting a coffee talk, which is also available on our website. And this is certainly something that we hope to see replicated in all areas of the state. Another way that we are really bringing visibility and generating excitement around IDD inclusive hiring is through hosting what we call holiday or inclusive business holiday gift markets twice a year at the Blue Hill Event Center in Chapel Hill. And these markets feature at least 18 different vendors that are either disability-owned enterprises or inclusive employers. And it's also just a fun way to check off any needs you may have for holiday shopping and support inclusive employment. So if you all are in the Triangle area, I definitely recommend coming out and scoping out the different inclusive employers that are represented at this event, and also supporting a good cause. All right, so with each of the different things I'm going to share about today, I also want to kind of just summarize with some calls to action. So here's how you can help as I'm assuming family members of individuals with Down syndrome. You can share about the employer training with businesses in your local area, or perhaps you have an adult that is employed and maybe their supervisor could use some more training around how to support them. You can send them the link, which is on our website. And then, as I mentioned, we hope to see some of you at the holiday gift market on December 14th. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is actually just go straight to our website. I find that just showing you all how to navigate the website is the best way to demonstrate how to access our resources. All right. So our website is in response to feedback that families are really looking for information as it relates to the transition to adulthood in a more centralized way. So rather than having to go on a million different websites to find what they need or to find services or programs, for everything to just be in one spot. So we like to compare this as an Amazon for all things planning for adulthood. And there's several different key portals within this website. So the first that I'll show you all is the Find Services portal. All right, and once I get to this, you'll see that a map pops up, which shows the different managed care organizations across North Carolina, and there are 4 of them. And here you can identify, based on what county you live in, which managed care organization serves you and your family. I'm not sure what the education level is around how managed care organizations work, but just to give kind of the broad synopsis, this is really where all Medicaid funding for home and community-based services is funneled through in order to get services such as direct support professionals or job coaches, things like that, or the waiver, which is really key. All right, so once you scroll down, you can start to filter through services across the state based on what your needs are. So let's say that you are in the Alliance Health region in Orange County. And again, I was able to identify that using the map above. Orange County is in the Alliance Health region. All right, and then I'm also looking for employment services. Okay, so if I click employment services, I get a narrowed down list. And once I click one of these, it gives me kind of a quick glimpse description of what that service is, what counties it serves, what the eligibility criteria is, a phone number, and an email. And then if I feel like this might be a good fit for what I'm looking for, then you can always visit the website and click visit website for more detailed information. But again, this is all just intended to make finding information easier and more of a seamless process of getting connected with whatever is needed to meet your young adult's needs. All right, so that's how the service library works. Next, I'm going to show you all the resource library. All right, and we have resources that are organized based on audience. So whether you're a self-advocate, family member, educator, or service provider, or employer, we've really sorted these out to be tailored to these different perspectives. And the way that we define resources on this site is it's more of a tangible way of accessing information. So a lot of these are PDF toolkits or different YouTube videos or podcasts even. We tried to make it as multimedia as possible, but these are not direct services. These are ways of accessing information around these topics. So I know most of you are family members, so let's say you're interested in exploring post-secondary education options for your young adults. And then you see a handful of our top pick resources on this topic once you get to this page. One that I always like to highlight is our What's Next College Inclusive Post-Secondary Guide. And this was some of the resources are ones that the Work Together NC team has created. Others are external sites that we're linking to. And again, this is one that we developed based on a gap that we saw. So this is really a toolkit that helps a self-advocate really assess whether college might be a good fit for them. And it goes through all the different colleges in North Carolina that are inclusive of people with disabilities, including both universities and community colleges. And there's links all over this document to different virtual tours of these programs or different websites. And again, this is all geared at informed decision-making, really centering the self-advocate to assess what their living options are, what internships could look like in college, what types of student life they'd like to get involved with, what the admissions process is like. And again, this is just one example of the over 400 resources that are in this resource library. So I highly recommend taking some time to Hold on, let me get back to the page. All right, are you all seeing the site again? Yeah, okay. Yeah, and then you'll see there's different topics over here on the side. So maybe you're not interested in post-secondary education, but you want some help with employment. And here's some really nice fact sheets and PDFs around how to access employment services or benefits counseling, things like that. All right. The next part of the website I want to show you all is, in my opinion, the most useful. So this is the time to pay attention. This is the action planning tool. And I think this really integrates everything on the site in a very actionable way. So the way this works is we have various domains of transition planning with checklists that really support step-by-step what needs to be accomplished in order to achieve one's goals in these areas. So I'm actually just going to play the video that gives a tutorial on how to utilize these action plans, which can be customized. And let me know if the audio doesn't come through well.
Did you say it was supposed to have sound?
Yes, are you guys not hearing anything?
Yes, no sound. We can see you clicking and navigating.
Oh, that's not good. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see. Okay.
Project coordinator of Work Together and
Hear that?
I'm
There
excited
we go. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
to share about the action plan tool on our website, which is designed to assist in planning for adulthood. Whether you are a person with an intellectual or developmental disability, an IEP team member, family member, or adult service provider. Let's check out the action plan page. On this page, you'll meet Trey, a person with a developmental disability who is transitioning to adulthood and figuring out their goals. So under each section, you'll find Trey's journey. Let's check out Trey's journey toward employment. Here, we can see examples of the different steps Trey is taking toward work readiness and finding a job. We hope that Trey's journey in all of the different areas of transition will be especially helpful as a tool for self-advocates to be able to see the perspective of a peer who may be going through similar things. Now, let's look at how to customize an action plan. There are 3 different buckets of action plans to look through. First, action plans related to what opportunities are available in adulthood. Next, action plans related to making sure the transition to adulthood goes smoothly. And finally, a few action plans related to self-advocacy and making choices. So let's say I'm an IEP team member who wants to support my student, Trey, and their family to pursue adult life opportunities. I can choose to either generate a custom plan for an individual topic by clicking one of these individual links, or I can group all 3 topics together by clicking this link. Right now, my student Trey's priority is post-secondary education, so I'm just going to select that plan for now. Now, I'm going to go through and select which items apply to the student I am supporting, based on what I know about their strengths, goals, and interests. And you'll see here that each item has a recommended age for when it should be completed, as well as who's responsible. Is it the IEP team who ultimately accomplishes the item, or is it a collaboration between the individual, the family, and others? All right, so I'm going through and checking off which ones are relevant and will support my student in reaching their post-secondary education goals. All right, so when I get to the end of the form, I will be able to add any other items that are personal to my student. So for Trey, I'll say, tour App State's Scholars with Diverse Abilities program, because I know that's a specific program that Trey is interested in. All right, so once I have finished the action plan, then I can go ahead and email it to either myself or the student or parents, whoever is most appropriate, and that's an optional step. And that will be automatically emailed. I also have the option to print this page. So you'll see here, I have a nice condensed, customized version of that original checklist that really focuses in on my needs and priorities, or the needs and priorities of my student. And we would really appreciate feedback on this process. So please take a few minutes if you can to leave feedback at this link, which is highlighted in yellow. This will help us continuously improve this tool and make it even more user-friendly and helpful. All right. Let me figure out how to get my screen back here. All right, so in that tutorial, I demonstrated how to use the post-secondary education action plan. If there's any other action plan that I highly recommend looking at, it is the Adult Services Action Plan. All of them are super valuable information, but I think this one really is vital to figuring out how to navigate Medicaid, how to apply for the waiver, which is kind of the golden ticket to getting services in adulthood, and also how to navigate Social Security, which, you know, all these are very complicated processes. So this breaks it down in a very step-by-step manner. Again, with corresponding recommended ages for when each of these steps should be taken, as well as who can help and links to resources. Okay. So I showed the Find Services portal, the Action Plan portal, and the resources. And the only other thing I wanted to point out on this site is the employer training. In case you wanted to send this to an employer, or you just wanted to check it out for yourself, then you could click the employer training link, which is about in the middle of the homepage. And you can access it directly from there. And finally, you can check out the full list of IDD inclusive employers at the bottom of this page. And we really appreciate help spreading the word so we can add more employers to this list. All right. Sorry, doing a lot of tab switching here. I'm going to go back to my slides. All right, so again, just as a recap, the
Work Together NC website is really intended to serve as a one-stop hub for navigating resources, finding services, and making action plans in all the different planning areas for adulthood. For the action plan tool, you have the option to read the comic first, and this is more geared toward a self-advocate to really, as kind of a primer for making informed decisions and knowing all the steps that they might be taking to achieve their goals in these areas. Then you might move on to customizing the checklist version, which is that more detailed version. And that is really more appropriate for a service provider and parents to collaborate on together. Again, this is what that looks like. And then with each item, we have the linked resources to help accomplish them. But we also acknowledge that sometimes, PDFs or links are not enough, and we need a direct service or someone to really handhold through the process. And that's where Work Together NC's service library comes into play, where you can find actual humans to be able to support you in these things. And we also acknowledge that, of course, goals are going to change over time. And also the other thing I'll say is, don't feel bad if it said the recommended age is 14 and your adult is 18. Everyone is on a different path, and it's never too late to backtrack if needed. And we know that action plans may need to be recreated as goals change, and that's totally normal. And just to point out some of the best practices that the action plan tool is promoting, really that student involvement piece in the IEP and transition planning process. The comics, again, are really geared toward helping students understand what's going on and understand these different areas of transition. And interagency collaboration, we mention who can help under each action item, really promoting that this is a team. This takes a village, and it cannot just be on the parents. And then, of course, the tool in itself is educational and supporting parents to navigate the adult services system. And then finally, just the emphasis on self-determination and self-advocacy throughout the tool is really a key predictor for successful adult life outcomes. If you're interested in getting involved in Work Together NC, this truly is a very collaborative, community-based effort, and we invite parent perspectives to be involved in all of our different work groups and alliances. So currently we have an alliance on employment, post-secondary education, transportation, as well as an IDD Nonprofit Leaders Alliance and a housing and community living work group. So if you're interested in advocacy on any of these different topics or on developing resources or reviewing resources that we create on any of these topics, you can fill out this form on the QR code, and we'll get you connected with the work that's happening in these areas. We are also recruiting for our research study, which is looking at supports and barriers to community integration. And all the findings from what we learned from this study is going to inform the resources that we continue to create on the website. And this actually involves looking at where people with IDD are going in the community using GPS trackers, and what places are most meaningful to them and where they're experiencing barriers to accessing the places they need and want to go. Of course, we're already finding that transportation is really a key issue for a lot of our folks in achieving their community participation goals, but also a lot of other interesting findings that we're looking forward to sharing about. So if interested in participating in the study, or if your young adult is interested, then just shoot us an email, worktogethernc@med.unc.edu, and we'd love to connect with you. All right, and another way that you can help kind of inform the ongoing development of the process as we try to be as responsive as possible to needs that are brought to us is through taking our community needs assessment, which is available in English and in Spanish. And this just overall looks at your perception as a family member on how difficult or easy it is to access services in all the different domains of transition, or your perceived, what you perceive as the amount of opportunity that exists in the areas of employment or post-secondary education, things like that, so that we can continue to look at these measures and see if our project is making an impact over time on the ease through which families can navigate resources and services in North Carolina. All right, so that is pretty much it from me. I recommend following along on Work Together NC's social media. Our Instagram is Work Together NC, as well as our Facebook. Or feel free to email us if you have any questions or ideas, or if you wanted to be added to the email list. Yeah, so at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, families that are trying to avoid that cliff, we have a lot of our families in transition right now, and so we welcome y'all tonight. If you would like to unmute or just pose a question into the chat, you are more than welcome to do that. And we will just see if we have any questions. Great presentation, great resources. It was exciting to see all ages, like you said, young adults into, teens into young adults at this on the Self-Advocate Track at conference, working through some of setting those goals. And what steps does it take to get there? What am I already doing? What is my community of resource to get there? So putting all the pieces together. And we will also manifest, as we heard her say, the waiver and tailored plans are kind of the ticket to get these resources. So we also encourage families that have not filled out or are not on the innovations waiver or have not looked into once your young adult does turn 18 of that Medicaid Tailor plan, we could connect you directly with your care manager to get that ball started as well. So any questions? We'll just keep the floor open for a few minutes. But Jacklyn has shared the amazing resources from Work Together and navigating those, so we don't have to get lost in the clicks. So thank you for that direct connection of how we can walk away with those tangible resources. We are so thankful as families. All right, families, I'm going to give it just a few more minutes. Is there any reason that y'all could not unmute? Let me make sure. Thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you, Jacklyn. I know I had set possibly for participants to be cameras off and muted. That's one thing I don't know if they can unmute. If anybody is a participant and cannot unmute, just let me know if you would like to. That's part of the teams, but I think you can. Thank you so much, Ellen. Thank you for joining. Again, you will get recording and feedback survey. So please provide that as we continue just to bring our families the information that you all need. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm not getting any more dots in the chat. I think she covered it top to down, top to, yeah, up, down, top to bottom. I can't even form words. Let's go, families. But we just want to thank you so much, Jacklyn, and Work Together NC, and all that you all are doing with this program, and for your continued support for the North Carolina Down Syndrome Alliance. So it looks like everyone's saying thank you, no questions. So have a great evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are just a phone call or a click or an email away if you do need anything. But please check out these resources, as they are awesome, awesome resources to have for your young adults as you transition. Thanks so much. Have a great one, y'all.